I found the cracks where the light slipped through. A little voice whispered you always knew. Broken crayons, a box of rain, drawing dreams in the window pane. No more shadows, no more fight. Just my wings chasing the light. I'm becoming the butterfly in me. Colors brighter than I could see. No more blaming, no more shame. Just loving the spark that burns my name. I'm finally free. Butterfly me. A mirror shows the scars I've earned, each one a lesson, a page I've turned. The child I was still holding tight, now she's laughing, she's taking flight. Every tear was a seed in the ground, every loss was a note in the sound. I'm singing now, I'm spinning high. A caterpillar never dreams to fly. I'm becoming a butterfly in me. Colors brighter than I could see. No more blaming, no more shame. Just loving the spark that burns my name. I'm finally free. Butterfly me.
Hello, everyone.
That is such a beautiful song.
Excuse me. I get a little choked up. I know what it says, and I still get choked up when I hear it. Oh, my goodness. Thank you, everyone, so much for being here tonight. I already see so many of y'all in the chat, and I've tried to say hello as that song was playing. We are broadcasting from Body Illusions channel as well as my doggy channel tonight. So you may see people in the chat that you don't see in the other chat, but we can see everybody in the chat. So we will say hello to people so that you'll know who's here. But don't be upset if you say, I don't see that person, because they are actually in another chat. This is live stream number 2 of Healing What Hurts. I do have Body Illusions channel link posted at the top of my chat. So if you are in my chat, please make sure you go over to her chat and get to know her channel as well.
And Carson, I was asking you how you're feeling.
Yes, thank you so much. I did update that post from yesterday. I had a killer migraine yesterday, and I don't get them very often, but I don't know if it's because of the damage to my eyes from my diabetes or what it is, but when I have the headache, it makes it to where it's almost impossible for me to see. I can, see shapes of things to get around, but I can't read or, really do anything like that. So that was my problem yesterday. I just couldn't get my eyes to focus, and I knew there was no way I was going to be able to go live, and I wouldn't have enjoyed it anyway. I did have a couple people lined up that were supposed to come on and craft with me, and I did feel bad having to tell them I couldn't do it. But, that's part of what I'm learning, is that when my body says stop, take a break, that's what I need to do. And it's not easy for me to do that. So I am trying my best to listen not only to my body, but to my heart as well. There's Brazzy. Welcome, welcome.
And
So,
Carnisol is here.
yes,
And
and
he is
Sophia,
here.
and I Cherish Church, and
Seventh is
Ashley
here.
from Ashes and Embers, and Chew, and Pre-Retirement Days, and Angela Critter. So many of y'all are here, and I appreciate your support. Tiff, 420, welcome, Tiff. So glad to see you here tonight, too.
Oh,
I
Tiff.
do want to read this disclaimer before we get started. I am not a medical professional, and this is not a substitute for professional therapy. I am sharing my personal opinion and experiences, and not everything that has helped me will help every person. So take what you want and leave the rest, and only share what you're comfortable sharing. I know that this is a public platform. There may be things that you want to talk about that you don't want to do right here, and that's fine. My email is on my About page, and I would be more than glad to have a conversation with any or all of you if you want to do that privately. I do have the trigger warning going across the bottom of the screen because we are talking about some hard topics, and I don't want to trigger anyone. So if anyone feels this is too sensitive of a topic, please go ahead and click off, and we'll see you on the next live stream. And this is a no blame game zone. We're not going to blame those who have hurt us. Like I said last time, I believe in God, and I believe God will take care of those that have hurt us in the past. And it's our job to take care of ourselves and to move forward. Okay? Okay. Now,
There you go. Got that out of the way.
I did a post this week for journal prompt number 3. I want to go ahead and bring these journal prompts up. We can talk about this first. Okay. Now let's see where it goes. There it goes. We're on the bottom. Okay, good. The first one was describe a happy memory from your childhood and how did it make you feel? That one was pretty easy to do. I was lucky enough to have a very loving dad who definitely made sure that I did have plenty of happy childhood memories as well as the not so happy ones. And it always made me feel like he loved me when he would do things that did make me happy. The second week it was what are some things you loved doing as a child that you no longer do, and why did you stop? And I don't remember word for word what I said on the video, but I do know that I used to be very open with my emotions, and I did like to be creative. And I was told I was not good at being creative and I shouldn't try that. And I was also told I was very overly emotional. And so I did stop really showing my emotions. And then this week was write a letter to your younger self. And what words of advice or comfort would you give your younger self? And I am going to try to play part of that video if I can figure out what to do. I'm going to take this down. Okay.
Hi, Ned.
Hi, Ned. Welcome. I'm going to share this screen. And I will have to go to my, let's see, I want to do that. And then
She's so good at
y'all
this.
bear with me a minute. I'm not the best at doing all this switcheroo around, but we'll get there. I should have went ahead and had it in the restream part already, and then it would make it easy to do that. But of course I didn't do that. So we're going to try it this way. And we're going to go.
Don't let her kid you. I've seen her do puzzles.
Oh, I'm good at puzzles. And you know what? I'm teaching my granddaughter how to do puzzles, and she is really good at it too. I have some wooden puzzles, and she took those puzzles and she just really manipulated those edges until she got it going the way she wanted it, you know? I was really surprised with that. Okay, here we go. I'm going to try to play this now.
I found the cracks where the light slipped through. A
Well,
little voice.
We're gonna go forward in that. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Kaleidoscope of Happiness. This is Healing What Hurts, journal prompt number 3, and it reads, write a letter to your younger self. What advice or words of comfort would you give? So I did just that. I wrote the letter. I hope I get through this without crying. Dear sweet little Echo, I am so glad I have you as part of me. I know you were hurt by the person who should have loved you the most. She was sick, and it is not and was not your fault. Thank you for saving us and for holding on to all the pain. It's time now to forgive our past and release the pain. We need to heal, and together we will. I am here to love us and protect you at all costs. I love you, Echo. That was a hard letter to write. It was hard to find the words. It's kind of weird talking to yourself in third person. But as I go through this healing journey, I have discovered, acknowledged, and I understand what my inner child is. It's a part of each one of us. We all have an inner child. Yours may not have wounds or have had trauma or abuse. Yours may be healthy and happy. And it just gives you that childlike wonder, that sense of excitement, some creativity. But for me, my inner child was wounded and hurt, and she holds on to that pain. And it's time now to let it go. It's time for me to move on. I'll never be able to go back into the past and change what has happened. I now know I will never be able to change my mother or any of the situations I was in. But I do know that I have a huge, loving support system, and I am building this community to help myself and others to heal. So I hope you will continue to watch the videos in this series and the live streams. We will be covering a lot of different topics concerning childhood trauma, abuse, narcissistic abuse, parental abuse, just anything that could have scarred or damaged us as children. We're going to figure out a way to heal our past and to stop the hurting. I hope you follow along. I hope you do some of these journal prompts because they will open the window into your soul, and you'll be able to see that inner child and start to acknowledge them and start the healing process. Until next time, thank you so much. There we go.
Yeah, that letter knocks
All right,
through.
Yeah, that was really tough to do. But it does make me think about why I feel the way I feel about things, you know. There is a lot of things that have happened in my life, decisions I've made, things that have, just transpired that kind of I'm at a loss for why, why did you feel that way? Or why did you think that way? Why did you make that choice? And it all really goes back to that inner child not having the skills and everything that she needed to be able to make a lot of these decisions. Hello, John. Welcome. And Kristen from Bella's Whisper Farmstead came in also. Hello, hello. And Ned said, what you are doing right here, right now, Echo, this is change. This is beautiful, and I am proud to be here for it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to everyone who is supporting me on this journey. My friend Body Illusion here, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be doing this series. She was the first person that I opened up to and said, I'm thinking about doing this series. And she said, you need to do it because when you talk about your childhood, you get emotional. And so there are things there you need to talk about. And it's like, you're exactly right. There is. But, nobody wants to go through it alone. And so it's really nice to have a friend who can accept the past situation without any judgment and can just say, okay, I'm here for you. Whatever we got to do, we're going to do it. So she is here tonight holding my hand, and I appreciate that more than y'all know.
I love you, girl. I'm not going to let you
got
do this alone.
notes.
And look at how many people
That's right.
is with me. Is not going to let you do this alone. They're all here for you.
That's right. I have notes. I don't like to have things scripted, but there are certain points I want to make sure I don't, forget to say. Do you have us on something playing that might be making an echo or a little bit of a staticky
My
sound?
earbuds went out.
Oh, your earbuds
Yeah,
went out.
so you're
Okay.
picking up both sounds.
Okay.
Earbuds.
Okay. Is my sound okay? Is it garbly?
The people that have been around know Bruce.
Past?
He's a complicated little guy.
Okay. Who am I really? And, I've asked myself that question so many times in my adult life. Uh-oh, she'll be back. When I was married, had a young child, was working full time, I never really thought about who I was. Hi, John. 4 Cat Billies in a Virginia Mountain Shack, my very first member. Thank you so much, John, for coming by. Appreciate it so much. Anyway, when you have experienced childhood trauma, abuse, or neglect, your sense of self and self-esteem may not have developed in a positive way. As an adult, we have an inner dialogue running in our heads 24/7. For me, it's my mother's voice I often hear. And one of the first things I have had to learn on this healing journey is that her voice is not my voice. So I've often questioned my basic beliefs and values. Do I believe these things because I truly believe them, or are they just what I've been taught by my mother? And how distorted is her or was her opinion on these beliefs and values? I am now starting to realize that some of the core beliefs I have about myself are not true at all. There's been a lot of studies done about babies who are not loved and comforted and nurtured as children, which is sometimes, here she's back. Welcome back.
Oh, they're working. They're working. That's
Okay.
Bee says, "Hi, Beans." Yes, that was Beans making all that noise. He always has to be with me. He knows he gets treats when I come in here.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, we're good.
We
I'm
got
sorry
to
to
take care
interrupt.
of our Furby. Okay. Anyway, if I can figure out where I was at in my notes. Okay, yes, about the attachment disorder. Um, anyway, they've done a lot of studies, especially with babies in orphanages and, that have been adopted by uh, United States couples, and find out that the kids really have a lot of attachment issues. And that's one of the things that when you're developing as an infant, you cry out when you're in pain or when you're hungry or when you need something. That's your real only kind of communication you have. And when someone answers those cries and does the things that you need to have done, eventually you develop that trust that when you cry out for something, someone will be there and will take care of it. And so you're able to attach to that person and learn how to trust someone. But if that person doesn't necessarily always take care of you, and love you and nurture you and make you feel safe and secure, sometimes you don't get that positive reinforcement and you can have attachment disorders. Now, I luckily had a dad and an older sister, and I had an aunt who were very present in my life. And I'm sure that when I cried, most of the time, one of them was there to comfort me, because I do know what love is and I do know how to love someone else. Did I learn how to love myself? Not necessarily. So that's where that all comes into play with me, myself. Okay.
Yeah,
Positive
I can see your
reinforcement.
family giving you love because you sparkle more when you talk about them than you do about your
Yeah.
mom. You do,
Yeah.
you know,
And I
you
mean,
glow a little
and
bit.
that's why it's so, well, I think it is such a hard thing for me, because it wasn't all bad. I did have my dad. I did have my sister. It wasn't like if I had been totally only with me and my mom, I can't imagine how things would have been. So, I mean, I'm blessed that I do know what love is. But then it's a curse too, because I can see that I didn't get it from her.
Right.
So, kind of like if you didn't know what it was, you might not know you were missing it. But when you know what it is, then you can definitely say, okay, I didn't get it from this person. But anyway, when you have that reinforcement and affection from your parents, it can foster a strong sense of self-worth, while being neglected or criticized may have the opposite effect. That feeling that I am never good enough. This has always been a core belief of mine, that I could be almost perfect, and in my mom's opinion, it would never have been enough. And when you feel that way, one of two things happen. Either you go in the direction of, why bother? Why bother trying to accomplish anything? Because it's never going to be good enough. So why do I even want to? Or you go the other extreme where you say, okay, I will be a perfectionist. I will make sure everything is perfect. And if it's not
The
perfect, I'm
classic overachiever, huh?
yes. And so in my lifetime, I always, and I, in the early videos about my divorce, I talk a lot about living in a fairy tale. When you have childhood trauma and abuse, you don't want to live in that. You want to live in the fairy tales you hear about. You want to see, your life in a different way, and you want to have that knight in shining armor to come and rescue you, And
Oh, yes.
sometimes because you want him, hello, Indigo Twin, welcome. Sometimes because you want so badly for somebody to rescue you, the first person that pays you attention, you think this must be him. And
Right.
that's not always the case. And so sometimes you'll go through, bad relationships. And even if you learn from that bad relationship, when the next person comes along and you feel like they're going to save you, you don't even look at really, what is this person offering, or what does this person have that I need or want? It's just, oh my gosh, they're going to rescue me. That's what I've been waiting
Right.
for, So I can see how in my life I've not made good relationship choices based on that belief that I needed rescuing, and that anybody who even, remotely cared for me was capable of rescuing me. I now know that I have got to rescue myself, and that nobody else can do that. It doesn't matter, how many people I get involved with, relationships, friendships, whatever. Nobody can fix what's broken in me except for me. And I want everybody to realize that.
That's actually that's very wise. It
Yes.
is.
And it's not, all of us have our own situations that we've had to deal with in our past, that we've lived through. And for years and years and years, I didn't want to look at the fact that some of the problems I was having in my adult life came from my childhood, because I had got rid of that childhood. I had blocked that all out, and I had chosen what bits and pieces of it I was going to remember. And those were the good things. So how could anything that happened to me be causing what I was going through as an adult? There's no way that it could be from my childhood. And I think that's where a lot of us are in our journeys, that we don't feel like it's, and I'm not saying that you should find somebody to blame. I'm not saying that at all. But things happen to us as children that we can't control, and that there may have not been another adult there that could have protected you or saved you from what happened. And so if you blocked it out like I did, or even if you know it's there, but you just don't think it has anything to do with your adult life, I'm here to tell you that, everything has to do with our adult life. Our adult life is now where we've been in charge of making our own choices and our own decisions, but our logic may be off, and what we think is the right decision may actually have been the wrong decision, because it might have been what we were comfortable with, or what we understood. This is normal. This is how I should
familiar.
Feel. Right, because it's so familiar, it must be okay or right. Not necessarily, because all of those things that we should have been able to build our self-esteem and our self-worth were not there in the right places, in how they should have been. And so to protect ourselves, we all learn, oh, this makes mama mad, I'm not going to do that anymore. When I do this, I get in trouble, I get punished. And so you start to learn things that you're not going to do. But what that really does is just close off parts of yourself, and you're no longer going to develop those parts, because for some reason or another that brought you pain, or brought you
sadness, or
some kind of negative emotion. And so, okay, I'm not going to go there anymore, because I don't want that to happen. So one of the things that I did in my own life is I became a people pleaser. I decided the best way not to let anybody ever be mad with me or upset with me or criticize me is that I would do everything I could for everybody else. And of course, I went too far, and I did it at my own neglect, that I did not take care of myself, that whatever it meant to make someone else happy, I did that. Even if it made me very unhappy and miserable, it didn't matter, because what mattered was me making them happy. For a lot of years, I didn't understand that. And for a lot of years, I felt, well, I'm just trying to be the best employee I can be. There's that perfectionism again. I'm just trying to be the best wife I can be. I'm just trying to be the best mother I can be. And all of those things were great and wonderful, but I wasn't trying to be the best Echo I could be. I was only letting people see the bits and pieces of me that did something for someone else. It didn't matter about me, only about what I did for someone else. Now, I've researched that, because to me, I had a lot of mixed signals in my head as to why it wasn't okay to be a people pleaser, and, why did I do that? And the main things that I found were the fear of rejection, the desire for them to approve, of me or give me their approval. And because I had such low self-esteem, I didn't care about Echo. So it was easy to neglect her. But I cared about my job, and I cared about my husband, and I cared about my daughter. And so I couldn't neglect them. I had to give them everything that I had. Hello, BJ. Welcome.
Oh yeah, people are agreeing with you left and right. The chat is just going crazy. Yes,
so me,
you're hitting a chord with a lot of people here.
Good. And also, people pleasing can be a learned behavior from childhood, which definitely was in my case. As I said, I learned really quickly what things made my mom upset with me and what things made her happy, or so I thought. Although her happiness was never, was never all encompassing. It's like you could do something and it would make her happy for a few minutes. But then as soon as she got your attention that, oh, you've done something good here, then would come the criticism. Okay, you
Right.
did this, but you should have done A, B, C, D,
Right.
E, And if you weren't the bad child that you are, you would always do this, and this, And so it never was like, okay, you do something for somebody and they're happy and that's the end of it. It was always, you do something for somebody, they're momentarily happy, and then here comes the criticism. So what does that cause you to do? That causes you to be very apologetic. No matter what you've done, it's always, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't do more. I'm sorry I didn't do exactly what you wanted me to do. And so after a while, you realize that you can't keep that up. You cannot always be doing everything for every single other person. Or you can try to do that, but you're not successful at it. They are still not happy with you 100%, because, they want what they want and they don't care what you do. So you try to be a mind reader, you try to figure it out. Like, what is it? What is that one thing that I could do that would make this person just, love me no matter what? And there is not one thing that you can figure out to do.
There's no such thing as unconditional.
No. And then what are the consequences of you being a people pleaser? And I checked all of these off as well. First one, neglecting self-care. Constantly putting others first can lead to neglecting your own physical, emotional, and mental health. Definitely. And my mother.
It is a rush, though, when you make somebody else happy. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, it is. And if it would last, it would be great, But it's that saying of you're waiting for the other shoe to fall. It's like, okay, I've done what I thought I could do to make you happy. And now, how are you going to react to this? What are you going to say
Right.
to me that's going to make me, just feel even worse? My mom was never diagnosed, but I considered her a hypochondriac. No matter what it was, the woman considered herself next to death, always. She always had some incurable disease that nobody had discovered yet. And she kept a medical history list of all of the surgeries that she had in her lifetime. And my sister and I, we would cringe every time that, somebody would have to ask her medical history, and she'd get out these folded up pieces of notebook paper, and she'd start back in, she was born, I think, in 1933. So she'd start like in 1935, and after we were grown and could understand, we realized that a lot of the things my mom had on the list that were surgeries were actually, minor procedures, or maybe even not a procedure, but something that she deemed as a surgery, because it sounds, people have more empathy for you if you, say, I've had over 100 surgeries, and you think, oh my gosh, how are you still, walking around if you've had that many terrible things happen to you,
How many parts do you have left?
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, and I shared this with Body Illusion the other day. One of the things that my mom had done was a breast biopsy. And she had my sister believing that not only did she have the breast biopsy, but that she had breast cancer. And my sister was fearful that she might have the gene, that we might have inherited that gene and that we might get breast cancer. And so as my sister went through menopause and giving her own medical history to her doctor, they always ask you, what did your mom pass from? What did your dad pass from? Trying to get a family history. And so when my sister was asked, and she said, well, yes, my mother had breast cancer. Well, of course, her doctor was like, oh my goodness, anybody else, any aunts, any, cousins, any sisters, anything like that. And we really didn't know at that time about, the rest of the family. And so the doctor was like, well, you're going to need to be tested, and your sister probably too, because, if she had breast cancer. And then he wanted to know how long had she lived after she had the breast cancer. We're like, she's still alive. And he's like, did she have a mastectomy? No, she didn't. Well, do you know if she had radiation or chemotherapy? We don't know. That's all we knew, is that we knew she had the biopsy because she had the date of that, and then that it was breast cancer. And so when my sister confronted my mom and said, look, you need to be serious with us, because if this is something, life-threatening, our doctors need to know, we need to be tested. Well, then she didn't really ever say that she lied about it, but it was always just kind of, well, I don't remember. I don't know. I didn't have to do anything after that, or whatever. And so we basically figured out, yeah, okay, you had a lump and a biopsy, but not necessarily breast cancer.
Yeah, the classic, I don't remember, but you keep charts, papers.
Yes. That's what, and that's what my sister and I said, how can you not remember? When you had a hangnail, 40 years ago, that got infected. So how do you not know? And that's when we started to realize that, what, a lot of these things that my mom professed to have, had wrong with her and all, probably were not necessarily 100% accurate. And so when it comes to your own medical history and your own medical diagnoses, the last thing I wanted to do was to be sick like my mom.
Right.
I would look at that and think, because she's sick, she kind of gets a pass on all these terrible behaviors, because after all, the woman is, dying, right? Well, so when I was first diagnosed, which I didn't go to the doctor like I should have, I kind of, didn't really want to know if anything was wrong. And so when I finally had my daughter, I got diagnosed with a bunch of things all at one time because it was the first time I really went to the doctor, to have any kind of test or anything done. And so, they're like, you're very sick. You need to get on medication and you need to take care of yourself and all this. Well, I was in denial. It's like, oh, not me. I'm not going to be taking all this medication like my mom and, doing all these things. No, I'm fine. I'll be fine. Well, over the years, I realized that part of my self-neglect was that I never took anything a doctor told me seriously, that it was actually true, and that there were things that I could do to make myself feel better. Now that I've had my weight loss surgery, and now that I'm off so many of the medications that I just agreeably took over the years, now I know, okay, you have to be your own advocate. You have to stand up to the doctor and say, wait just a minute, do I need a second opinion? Is there something I can do naturally? Is that, what can I do about my own health? And so I can definitely say that I neglected my physical health over the years, not only because of my low self-esteem or low self-worth, but also because I didn't want to identify as a hypochondriac like I felt my mom was. Okay. Something else that can happen is you can get burned out. The continual effort of meeting other people's expectations can result in exhaustion and burnout and impacting your own ability to function effectively. Which I know there were times in my life that I should have taken breaks and I should have given myself some grace and said, you're not Superwoman. You can't do everything. You have to take a break. But no, see, that would have been a failure in my mind. One perfect example of this is I worked for a guy who had real estate. And one of the buildings that he rented out was to the Army, Air Force, Navy, and Marines recruiting officers. And part of that government contract, we had to provide the cleaning service of that building. That was included in their rent. And so here I am. When I took that job, I was not pregnant. I had been trying for almost 10 years to have a baby. I really didn't think I was going to have a baby. The man was like, well, I'm looking for somebody that can give me at least 5 years. I don't want to keep having to hire people and having turnover. And I was like, well, I'm not leaving this area. I don't have any children. I don't see why I can't promise you I'll be here for 5 years. So I did. Anyway, I started there in October. I was pregnant by April. And so then I had to come to him and say, sorry, but now that I'm expecting, I've always dreamed of being a stay-at-home mom. And so I need to be a stay-at-home mom. So you're going to need to be hiring somebody. So at first he said, that's fine. We'll work it out. We've got plenty of time, blah, blah, blah. Well, when I went into the hospital to have my cesarean, we still hadn't worked it out. There still was nobody hired or trained. It was still just me and him in the office. And his new solution to the problem was that I could bring the baby with me to work, because I said I can't even put her in daycare till she's 6 weeks old. And I really didn't want somebody else taking care of my baby. So he said, no problem. You're basically in the office by yourself. I know you'll still get your work done. You just bring her with you and have the baby there at work. So, of course, I didn't want to let him down because he was my boss. I said, okay, that's what I'll do. So when my baby was 7 days old, I was back at the office. I had her in
after C-section.
After a C-section. Wasn't even supposed to be driving, but I did drive there. I had her in the little carrier, and I had fed her and changed her, and she was asleep. And I said, okay, I've got so much paperwork to get caught up on. I'm just going to work until she wakes up. And so he calls me a few hours later and he's like, you need to go home, And I'm like, no, you don't understand. The baby's asleep. I'm actually getting some work done. I said, I'm just going to stay till she wakes up. When she wakes up, then I'm going to go. And so I could see already, as long as I was willing to get my work done, I could have my baby up there, with me. And I did. Well, back to the recruiting office. When the baby was about 6 weeks old, I still had her in the little carrying car seat thing. And the girl that had been doing that cleaning, she was not actually even going and doing the cleaning. And so, of course, the recruiters were complaining, and the place was a disaster. And they were like, you need to get somebody in here today and get this place cleaned up. And so, of course, my boss starts panicking. So what do? No problem. I can do it. So I work my whole day job, get off work at 5 o'clock, take the baby in the carrier, go to the recruiting office and clean that building. Yeah. I mean, hey, I couldn't let my boss down, I had to.
And the baby's still 6 weeks, you said?
The baby was like 6 weeks old. Yeah. And I worked for him for 8
years. You still haven't gotten any sleep yet.
No. What is sleep? Who needs sleep? But I worked for him. Hey, Boldly Unshackled and Dragon Flame. Welcome, both of you. And anybody else that I've missed. I'm sorry, I'm not paying good attention here. Shelby Sunlit, welcome. Anyway, so I worked for him for 8 years. And during that 8-year time frame, of course, my daughter grew up a little bit. But when my daughter was 3, I needed to have a hysterectomy. And because it was a mom and pop kind of job, I didn't have any insurance. And I found out that if I worked 28 hours a week at Walmart, I could get full medical insurance. But I would have to wait a year so that it wouldn't be a pre-existing condition so that they'd cover my surgery. And so I went to work part-time evenings and weekends after my day job now in order to get that insurance. And I did.
With a baby.
With a baby.
With a little one.
She was 3 by then. And I had since put her in daycare eventually. But anyway, so when she was about 8 years old, it was in the summertime. I had went full-time overnight as a supervisor at Walmart, and I still worked for this guy in the daytime, part-time. And it was summer, so my daughter was out of school. We went, and it was always my thing with her that, you let mommy get her work done, and then we'll go to the park, or we'll go here, or go there, whatever, But you know how kids can be. Are you done yet? Are we there yet? Or, So I got annoyed one day because he knew I was waiting for him to come and sign checks so that I could go to the bank and mail stuff out and, do what I needed to do. But I had to wait for him to come to do that. And I guess he just, thought, well, I'll get there when I get there. And so the longer it went, the more upset I got. And so when he finally did come, I said, you know what? I've had enough. And, I'm working full time, and you're not respecting the fact that, I'm still working for you to help you out. And yet you won't even help me out, by coming when I need you to and stuff. And so I ended up quitting. But, and I felt bad about quitting.
Right.
I don't know for how long I beat myself up about that, and here I had done absolutely everything I could do to make this job work and make this man happy. And I forgave myself, being able to be a stay-at-home mom and taking care of my daughter because this man wanted me to be there working. And so I did what somebody else wanted instead of being able to do what I wanted or needed to do for myself. So I know all about, all right, John, thank you so much for coming by. I know all about how that burnout and resentment can occur after you're trying to please everybody but your own self. All right. Some of the things that you've got to do to quit being a people pleaser is practice self-awareness. You have to learn about yourself. And that's something I still struggle with. when I got divorced and moved into my apartment, it was really the first time in my life that I had really had my own place without a roommate or a husband. And I didn't even know, what I wanted. I didn't know what furniture I wanted. I didn't know how I wanted to decorate it. I didn't know, anything, because I really had never done anything with just my wants. It was always,
Right.
Well, this is what we need to do for the family, or this is, and so as I started doing things, I was like, oh my goodness, you really like such and such. And it was like a big surprise, all these things that I found out about myself. It was like, how come I don't know these things about myself? And that's what a lot of it, is. When you don't take care of yourself, you don't ever think about yourself. And when did I ever have time to sit down and say, gee, Echo, if money wasn't an object, where would you like to live? Or what would you like to do for your job, or, whatever. No, I never took the time to think. Who cares what Echo wants? Echo's too busy worrying about what everybody else wants. So, when I finally was like, okay, I don't have the husband to worry about anymore. My daughter is grown and on her own. It really is just me for the first time. And so I can do things how I want to do them. But I still was afraid of losing my job, losing my friends, losing my relationship with my daughter. And so I still was a people pleaser, but I was learning about myself. And now I was becoming resentful because I would see things and I would be like, you know what? You really don't want to be doing that, but you're not strong enough to tell that person no. So you're going to go right ahead on and, do it and make yourself miserable. So the thing you need to do is to learn how to set boundaries. Now, I will tell you from my own experience, as soon as you start setting boundaries, your life is going to change. And it's not going to look like it's changing for the better at first. You're going to say, oh, what have I done? But if you can stick to your guns and really think about what it is you want your life to look like and put those boundaries in place, it does work out for the best. Because anybody who doesn't like the boundaries most likely are not really your true friends, or haven't really had your best interest at heart, things like that. And as far as worrying about, like, my daughter walking away from our relationship, of course, I worried about that so much because abandonment is one of the issues that I've always dealt with. Because my mom would always make me feel like if you don't toe the line, you can be out that door, At 3 years old, I can remember her telling me, you can leave. Well, where would I go? Come on. So I always held on to that fear. Oh my gosh, my daughter, will abandon me. I have to do whatever my daughter wants me to do, because if I don't, she's going to abandon me, and then I'm not going to have that relationship with my daughter. Thank goodness God gave me a smart enough daughter who realizes that she needs me as much as I need her, and that we need to work together. That it's not an all mama does everything, daughter does nothing kind of situation. So thankfully for that, because she could have very easily just walked away and said, yeah, you're just a little bit too crazy for me. And I'm not going to be here dealing with that. All right. And then the last thing for that is to I can't even say it. Make your self-care a why can't I say the word? Priority. Make your self-care your priority.
Okay.
And sleep is self-care. Okay.
Okay.
You must sleep. Your body needs sleep to function properly. So when you're so busy being a people pleaser that you're trying to do everything for everybody else, the one area that you can kind of fudge on is sleep.
Oh, yeah.
You can do yourself.
Because you have to get more things done.
Yeah.
So sleep gets, the area of sleep with the time gets smaller and smaller.
Exactly. And you say, I can just get up earlier and do that before I go to work. Or I can stay up later and get that
That
done.
was mine.
And so eventually you realize that that little window that you're trying to sleep is getting closer and closer and closer. And I mean, I would find myself saying, gee, I've got time for like a 45-minute nap, and then I've got to go to work, and never thinking about what am I doing to my body by not sleeping. When I went for on my pre-op test for my surgery, that was one of the big questions, how many hours of sleep do you get a night? And I'm like, every night? And they're like, well, on average. And I'm like, well, that even varies because of, depends on what I got going on. And she was like, so in other words, it's not a priority that you get your 8 hours sleep. Yeah, I've never needed 8 hours sleep. And she's like, I'm here to tell you, I need 9 hours sleep, but you think you don't need but about 3, So that's one thing you can easily change in your own self-care is by trying to get more sleep. Now, I don't advocate taking anything to help you sleep. I do think that meditation helps. I do think that just relaxing your body helps. And that sometimes you may have to lay there for a while before you actually do fall asleep. And usually I would, give myself like a time limit. If I lay here for 20 minutes and I'm not asleep, then I'm getting up and I'm doing something. All right. Whereas, now I'm kind of like, no, I just lay here and eventually my body will go to sleep and I'll get that rest, that I need. And that's another thing, listening to my body when my body says, oh, I need another hour this morning, or I really need to go take a nap. Always.
It's not a priority.
I had so many other things more important than sleeping. And what really got me in the habit of even taking a nap is when my granddaughter would be here. And I would finally get her down for a nap. And even though I wouldn't say to myself, okay, now you take a nap, I would be so exhausted that as soon as I got her down, I would just fall asleep. And then when I would wake up, it would be like, wow, I actually slept, for an hour and a half. And I didn't even know I was tired, So that's
for about a year. When I was working 2 jobs and they were full time and they were odd hours, but they were opposite hours, I would get home from work, I would take a shower, and I would dress for my other job. And then I would lay down on the couch, just in case I overslept 5 or 10 minutes, right? And then I would lay down on the couch and I would sleep for an hour and I would jump up and run to the other job. And I would do my job and then I would come home and then I would take a shower and put on my clothes for my next job. And then I would lay on the couch and take a nap for an hour, and then I jumped up and run again. And I did that for about a year, just,
Yeah, it's amazing what you can actually do if you have to.
I was done, though. Once I stopped. Once I realized that stop, you crash hard.
So I asked Body Illusion to come up with some affirmations, because one of the things we need to figure out how we can do it is to change that negative self-talk or the voice of whoever it is. And one way that you can do that is through affirmations. Now, believe me, when I first started doing affirmations, I felt a little bit crazy because the things that I was trying to make myself believe, I didn't really believe. So it took me a while to be able to be nice to myself and even say something nice about myself or to myself. So anyway, Miss Body Illusion is going to share a couple affirmations for us.
Okay, I have a few of them. Nothing spectacular, just a few of them. And they all came from listening to Echo's 3 parts so far of her recordings. And I listened to them and I went, you know what? she needs to hear this. You know what? She needs to hear, her inner Debbie needs to hear this. So, um, you matter. That's all the inner child needs to hear. You matter. You do matter. You're safe now.
Mm.
Is that? And you are loved. You know, I love you. Your happiness matters.
Ooh, big one.
Yeah. I mean, these all came from just listening to you. So, um, your feelings are valid.
Mm.
Okay. Um, what happened to you was not your fault. What do you need right now? You will get through this. Other people's moods are not your fault.
Mm.
It's not your fault.
Yes. Yes.
And,
Mm.
and your voice is important. Those are the ones I came up with just your little, okay?
Well, you hit all the major ones. And the thing about it is that you have to give yourself permission to let other people live their own lives. You are not going to do anything for someone else that is going to benefit their life if your life is miserable, because you're not
But you
your
also have
heart,
to give yourself grace.
your
You have to
heart's
give
not
yourself
in it.
grace.
And I really think that I have spent so much time worrying about what other people think and what other people want. And I was definitely someone who thought taking care of myself was being selfish, and that I wasn't worth taking care of myself, and things that I thought were important weren't important to anyone else. Um, and a lot of the things that I've learned on just doing this research on these different, areas of things is that I am important enough to work
Yes,
on.
you are.
You know, I do have something to offer to give people. I do want to help people. And I can't do that if I'm not helping myself. I have to get it together so that I can say, okay, I've been there, I know what you're talking about, and this might help you. you know um, a lot of the things that I've worked on over the years have been those trying to recall those memories, and not only just the memories, but how did it really make me feel. And so kind of working backwards from, okay, today I feel like this. Why? Oh, when I was 3.5, this happened. And I can remember how I felt. And guess what? At 62, almost 63, I still feel that way, because that's what I believed over all these years about myself.
Right.
And just because we
But even
believe,
to go back there, see, a lot of people have that wall still. So
yeah,
to even break through that wall to
well,
even look
it's
is
hard
a
to
big
look at it.
accomplishment.
I think you have to heal a certain amount before you can even look at it. And because you have to admit to yourself that it happened. You know,
Right.
it really did happen. And I really did go through those things. And it's almost like figuring out a mystery, because it's like, okay, nobody just wakes up one day and says, I don't love myself. You know, there's a reason you don't love yourself. Something has happened in your life that has made you have that opinion of yourself. And for the longest time, I could say, well, it was because I wasn't a good wife. Look at me. I ended up getting divorced. Well,
Right.
I wasn't that good of an employee because I got hurt and I couldn't do the job anymore. You know, No, those are reasons. Those are things that happen to me, but they're not the reason I don't love myself. You know, I can look at my marriage and say, yeah, I had my part. It takes two to tango. And I'm sure I had my own part in it. But I know I did not do anything with the intention of hurting my husband, my child, or my marriage.
The
You know,
word I would come up with was always, "You're a failure.
yeah. Oh,
You're a
yeah.
failure.
Yes.
You're a
And that
failure. You
goes
left
right
your
back to
job. You're a failure.
trying
You
to be a
left,
perfectionist, you know, because you don't want to be a failure. So the opposite of failure is being a
work
perfectionist.
harder at it."
And how about you become high star? You become such a perfectionist that you can't even let somebody else do something and mess up. Like you
Right.
think you have to, oh, wait. If you do that, this is going to happen. I need to prevent that from happening to you. Sometimes people have to do their own thing, make their own mistakes, have whatever, happens to them happen. But somehow you feel like I always felt like, well, my husband's a smart man, but he might not be smart enough to figure this out when it comes to taking care of my baby. So I might have to tell him, this is how I want you to change the diaper. This is how I want you to feed her. This is how I want, you know,
No,
and
mine was always, "I'll do it. Don't worry about it. I'll do it," because they would never do it to please me. "I'll do it. I'll do it."
well,
So I
and
would, yeah.
that was the one piece of parenting advice I gave my daughter and my son-in-law when they had the baby was I told my daughter, I said, you let him do whatever he wants, however he wants it, because it's important for the child to develop an individual relationship with each of you. And if things are done a little differently, then she'll learn there's two people here, that it's not just
Right.
always mama's way, that daddy has his way too.
Right.
And I said, I felt like I prevented my husband from being able to make that kind of connection with my daughter, because either I would leave all these instructions and then, criticize him when I came home that you didn't do it right. Or I would just say, never mind, I'll just do it myself. There's no sense in me even bothering. And I didn't want my daughter to have that same kind of situation, but I wanted her to know that I can admit the fact that, that was part of my protection of her, that I didn't want her to be neglected or abused in any way. And so somehow, even if I couldn't be there all the time, I had to make sure, things were done just so. And you can't protect them always, something
Yeah.
can happen, anything can happen, and you can't be responsible 24/7 for somebody else's life. But it's easy to think, gee, if like, and I think I went through that too when I was becoming a mother myself. What kind of mother do I want to be? Well, I definitely want to be the total opposite of my mom. I don't want to do anything to ever upset my child. I don't want to, and then you start to realize, well, you still have to discipline them. You still have to raise
Right.
them right. It's like, you can't give them everything without, there are some limits, but there's definitely not, shouldn't be that criticism and that negative talk to them. And,
Criticism.
um,
Limits, not criticism.
yeah, yeah. And my daughter will tell you today, I never let her play sports. Well, I never let her play sports because as a child, you want to do a lot of things, and you try and you start things and you don't finish them. And then that makes you feel like a big failure because, well, you tried, but it didn't work out. And with
Uh-huh.
me, no matter what I tried, I would never be good enough at it. So I always failed. So then after a while, it was like, well, I don't want her to have that feeling of being a failure. So I
Right.
would always let her, hey, Nana, welcome. I would always let her think about it. I would never say, absolutely not, you're not doing that. I would say, well, think about it, look at the pros and the cons. And, if you really want to do it, we'll do it. And she always talked herself out of it. But yet in her mind, it's easier for her to say, my mom never let me.
Right.
Than to say, I chose not to do it. So
Right.
when she says that, I don't get upset because I'm like, yeah, well, I know the truth. I know that I would have let you, but I didn't want you to put that pressure on yourself that, oh, I'm a failure because I can't,
Right.
But there's so many things that, have happened over my life that now that I'm finally healing and I'm finally looking at it for what it really is, it's like, how foolish. But you're a child. Now you have to remember you're a child. And so you look at it like a child looks at it. You don't have logic. You don't have anything to, base it on to be able to say, well, no, that's just foolishness. You shouldn't think that way. If somebody, that's what they're telling you, that's what you're going to believe. You're not going to be able to sit there and say, well, gee, if this adult says that about me, then that must be the truth. I must be that. Whatever, So I've learned so far that anything that happens in my adult life that I don't like or that's negative, or I look at it as a negative thing, that I need to look back at my past and see if there's a reason that I feel the way I feel. And then is that logical? Does that make common sense now to me? And then I can say, yeah, that, I'm not that person. I am this person. Tip says, I have had to run into the same wall over and over, but I am finally finding peace. Exactly.
Oh, that's wonderful, Tip. Congratulations.
And it takes so much work. It's not something that you can just say, okay, I know I have a problem and I don't want to have this problem anymore. And so, I don't have this problem anymore. It's like, it's still
magic wand
in there, And as much as you try to convince yourself, oh, it doesn't affect me. It doesn't really affect me at all, and then something will happen and you're like, oh, that's me. Oh my God. I didn't even realize I felt that way,
Uh-huh.
And I think I'm becoming to be a lot more open. Things that I kind of wanted to keep in there, like, oh, they'll think so much differently of me if I say I did this or I did that, or, and just kind of like, no, I just won't mention it. Nobody will ever know, And then I have problems in my life and people are like, you ever thought about this? You ever thought about that? How would you know that about me? It's like, because I'm so good at hiding it. How would you ever, have figured that one out? Because everybody, we can see what we won't acknowledge in ourselves. We can see in other people.
Right.
And it's like, oh, yeah. Then when you actually can start seeing it in yourself and saying, okay, I really do need to look at this. That's when you can finally start to heal. Hi, Shantirement. Welcome. And I am so glad that I'm taking this journey and I'm trying to heal myself and to look at the parts of me that I don't like, that I've tried to ignore or say really weren't there. I'm looking at them now. And when I do these journal prompt videos, I sit there a little while and I think about it. And I'm not sure what's going to come out. I don't know what my answer is going to be to these different questions or how I'm going to handle it. But I know that I'm ready to be honest with myself. And that's a big, big step, that I'm actually willing to be honest with me.
Yeah. And I'm so honored that you're taking me along on this ride.
I think I would be sitting here crying like a baby if you weren't here. So I am so glad that you are here, just to be my moral support and just to, I've got somebody to look at when I'm talking, and I don't have to feel like, okay, is anybody hearing me? Because I might just be rambling
Look
on.
at all the people that's listening. I mean, people are talking left and right and just agreeing with you and opening themselves up. Hopefully, you get a chance to read the chat,
Yeah, I will
after.
before I
Yeah, because
get
there's a
off.
lot of people that brought some interesting, interesting lights to their and identified with you a lot.
Yeah. Well, I
Right
just
now, Mental Health Matters is live.
okay.
So quite a few people have gone there.
Okay.
Hopefully we can do a room raid after we're done with this.
Yeah, we should do that. Yeah, we should do that.
Tiff, I'm glad you're enjoying it, honey. I miss ya. I haven't talked to you in a while.
Yeah. And I've met people that have opened up with me and told me things about themselves that I'm sure haven't been easy, for them to be able to share and be able to um, let me see their
Your
healing process.
vulnerable side.
Yeah. Let me see what they're doing and what they're going through. So it's been really good for me. And like I always say, I don't make videos for anybody else. I don't cover things that I don't want to cover. So if it is anything that we say or that we do that makes you start thinking about things in your own life, then we're on the right track. We're doing what we came here to do. So it's going to help me greatly to work through these things and talk about these different topics as we go through this series. And hopefully it will help somebody else. I'm so glad
I think it is. If
Bowling
people
and
are coming to
tackle.
you with their ideas and thoughts, then you're helping people open up and not be afraid to look,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
that makes sense.
And the one thing, all right, Bowley and Shackle, the one thing that I think is really helping me is that I want to have a happy life. I want to live a good life. I don't know how many years I have left to live, but however many years I have, I want them to be as happy and peaceful as they possibly can be. I want to make up for that lost time that I spent unhappy and miserable. And if that means that I spend the next, 15, 20 years coloring in coloring books and doing diamond art and learning how to crochet and whatever else I might end up picking up as a hobby, then at least I will have spent that time doing what I truly wanted to do. And I think that's the goal, to be able to live a life that I'll be proud to say, I might have not always loved myself, but when I figured it out, I made sure I loved myself. All right, let me go get her link for Mental Health Matters. So any of you that want to jump over there and say hello, you can. Just one second.
Oh, okay. Room raid. Room raid. Go in there and type in room raid. Give them that.
What are you
John will love it.
Here we go. Well, come on. There we go.
Thank you, everyone, for being here and listening to this.
Yes.
And
Thank you
her
so much. It means
opening
so
up
much.
herself
Okay.
to
Here is her link.
all this.
There you go.
Because this
right.
is a big thing to put it out here and
So how do we
never
do it?
land.
Do we have to end this live
It's up there now.
stream? Or we
It's up
just
there now. What's that now?
I said, do we have to end this live stream before we can
No,
go
no.
over there? Or we can just click over there. Like I can go
Well,
on
if
my
we click
phone.
on it, if they click on it, it's going to cut them off of this one.
Okay, well, that's fine. Just say
No.
hi when you get over there. Okay. And we'll be over there in just a second.
Yeah, but they've been on for a while. They can wait for us.
Okay. All right. Well, then I'm going to go ahead and look back at this chat real quick.
Are we okay? It's totally up to you, honey.
And just make sure there's nobody that I missed. I think I said hi to just about everybody.
I am so glad. Again, I'm so glad you all came to share this with her. This is a very hard journey, and she's doing it in front of all of us, so all of us can learn and experience and understand. I think it's beautiful, and thank you, Echo, for doing this.
Oh, you are so welcome. Oh, wow. Ashley said, I've recently realized yet again, I have been waiting on permission for things he has already said so. Exactly. Exactly.
It's amazing what people have said this evening. It's yeah.
Yeah, now Ashley
Beautiful.
and Tia, they're in the morning chat. Oh, and Ben Bacon Bits was here. Hello, hello. I didn't even see him.
Yeah.
Hello, hello. But it's helping my faith grow stronger and for me to learn how to be more obedient. Oh, Bolian Shockguild said, boundaries is one of the quickest ways to identify unhealthy people in your life. Yes.
Yes.
Oh, and Sir Dank for Jesus was here. Hello, Dan. Yeah, I missed people.
That's okay.
I hate that.
They were all here to support you. So.
Ned said, these conversations are important. They may affect us in ways we don't expect. Some things might affect us unexpectedly. We get it and want to say self-care is necessary. That's right. It is necessary. Gosh, it's so necessary.
What is today? The 23rd?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Tomorrow is the last day of self-care month.
Today's the
24th.
okay.
24th.
Yeah.
24th is the last day of self-care month. So.
Well, I just got started good this month, so. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and end this one. And then I'm going to jump over there to Mental Health Matters and say hello. If y'all want to join us, go right ahead. If not, we will see you next time. And thank you, Miss Valerie, so much. Bye, everybody.